All right. Um, I Somebody asked if I had a problem with twitching. Um, I don't know if that was a targeted person who commented. Uh, I used to have trouble with tremors, kind of, and like shaking, twitching, I guess you could say, especially while I was asleep. There was some kind of twitching issue. Um, but that has been resolved somehow. When I was a young teenager, I was on a medication called Depakote. And one of the side effects of Depakote, it can be a permanent side effect, or at least something that could potentially last a decade or longer, is called tardive dyskinesia. And so for a long time, I had this weird, like, knee shaking thing. I know you can't really see my knee shaking, but if you know what it looks like when you have seen somebody across the table or whatever, when their knees shaking under the table, and you can just kind of see them above the table, kind of like uh, that was me for a long time. And I think for the most part, I stopped doing that. I still do that a little bit here and there, but not like I did whenever I was younger. Like when I was a teenager, it was like completely uncontrollable. Like I had to be doing some kind of like shaky thing, and it was usually my leg. It was usually my leg, and I just bounce it up and down like that. Tardive dyskinesia is a side effect to medications. And then, like, up into my adulthood, I didn't really use medications anymore. I pretty much kept things natural. I mean, there were a few times that things weren't so natural, but for the most part, I was somebody that didn't even like taking Tylenol or ibuprofen or anything like that, even. Vertigo is one of the symptoms that I didn't really hit on with the other videos that I was definitely plagued with um, after being Neuralinked or whatever. Uh, it was like it was like this dizziness or this vertigo, and it was there all the time. And if I would stand up from a seated position or from a laying position, as I would, get up, I would have to really look around and gauge the world around me, uh, and keep, what is it called? Like a point of focus to gauge gravity around. And anytime that my eyes would close, like I would notice that I would especially do this in the shower, be like in the shower washing your hair and close your eyes because, of course, when you don't want to get soap, shampoo, or anything in your eyes. And I would notice that anytime my eyes would be closed for longer than a couple seconds, I would begin to lose my balance. It was only because I had a frame of reference that I was able to stand upright and normal at all. And back then, even putting sunglasses on and trying to maneuver around was a little bit tricky. Any difference in my vision it would affect my balance, my ability to walk, all that. So it just became a completely different way of maneuvering through life and living than what I'd had up until the age of 27, which I'm assuming is just like the age that a female turns, and the guys aren't interested in her anymore. So she can then become, a guinea pig for whatever science experiments, especially. I'll have to like get on an old Facebook page and find some pictures of me from when I was 27 and throw those in at some point, or put them as a thumbnail or something like that. But in this video, I especially want to get into how my sleep was affected after this, and how other people were able to sneak around me while I was asleep, basically. I'm just going to put it like that. And the rest of this, I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for children, just because of I'm going to do my best, okay? I'm going to do my best not to make it a rated R thing. But if that's what happens, then I guess I just have to deal with that. So either way, I don't think that a kid would even have the attention span to sit through any of my monologues. I can barely sit through my videos. Like, I'm that boring. At some point, I am going to wear a bikini top and stand in front of the camera and do a whole video like that. Just because I would rather stare at my own chest under the circumstances while I'm listening to myself, then, you know what I mean? I think that would hold my attention a little bit more. So there's another video that I made where I talk about a lifetime of exploitation, and how I am kind of a lifelong victim of CP, which would later on not be CP anymore. You would only just categorize it as illegal pornographers. Okay, right? Because I had really creepy family members, some of whom I know, and then some of whom I never met. Chomos, basically. Lots of chomos. Skex offenders. All right, so they've kind of been involved in this nighttime thing, and I don't know, maybe this is also like tied into some MK Ultra program, or I don't know, but there's like this sleep sex ring, and to replace the word sex, I like to use the word skex. I like to put a K in there. It kind of reminds me of the Skeksis off of the Dark Crystal. So we just replace it. So I would use the word skex. It's skexy, super skexy. When I'm in my bikini top, I'm super skexy. All right, so there's been this like sleep invasion thing going on for a long time, and it might be a government thing, but I know that it's definitely tied into some Freemason, Illuminatus, Eastern Star, witchcraftious, nastiness, chomoism, and it may have to do with some ritualistic abuse, some SRA, satanic ritual abuses. I just know that, like, I would wake up to some things whenever I was a kid, and other times I would have these thoughts, and the thoughts would be about people doing things to me while I was asleep, and I would go in and out of this dissociative place as a kid of knowing and then of not knowing. All right, and the way that this is going to tie into the whole Neuralink thing is after I went through this Neuralinking procedure, it would happen a lot less often that I would wake up to what was happening, and it would be more often that I would instead sleep through it. And I believe that the reason for that is because if people have access to your physiological data, they can easily determine whether or not you're asleep. Um, Also, if you have a lot of people just watching you all at once, whether you've been Neuralinked or not, if you have people who really pay attention to, does this person snore? Are there any, did they, can I attribute any behavior to them while they're asleep? There are some people who really let you know right away that they've fallen asleep. They either begin to snore, they might begin to twitch, they might begin to, I've heard people with sleep apnea make all manner of groans and grunts and crazy sounds. I've heard them sound like absolute trains. So there are people who you would definitely know that they had fallen asleep without a shadow of a doubt, without having to use any, technology, or even a group of people potentially. But in this case, I will say that I would wake up to events unfolding upon me or around me less often after I would go through this Neuralinking crap. Well, that's not to say that I would never wake up to uh, sex offenders and people like that doing their nastiness. Okay, but for real, it is really serious. A sleep trafficking ring is really bad, especially when they somehow can get you neurally monitored to then more effectively be able to attack you and or your family in the night. And there are a couple ways that I personally have think that I was put um, put to sleep. No, that's not the right phrase. Drugged, I guess. Uh, my grandmother definitely drugged me at different times. I believe that she was drugging me and my little girl, and that she, for some reason, wasn't drugging my son. And she would make it to where my little girl and I would sleep in for a really long time. And we would be asleep in there for a really long time, just completely knocked out. But my son would not be, and he would be in a whole other part of the house with them. And that would be very much like what I can compare to whenever I was a kid. My parents would take me on vacation to Lake Meredith out in Amarillo, Texas. And on the way home, we would generally stop and get something to eat. And then I would fall asleep, and I would fall into just this crazy deep sleep. And I would always, chalk it up to the fact that I was running around and or swimming a lot, that I'd, really worn myself out. But at one point, actually at a couple points, I would wake up, even though I might have gotten a lot of exercise in, workout, as a kid out there. I would wake up to a camera set up in my room, or, and I would be missing some articles of clothing that, it would be obvious that something was going on. I would be covered in different stuff, and I would just wake up like that. And um, And also the men who I dated throughout my life, I've never been married before. Um, Men were sent to me to date me, and it would be really obvious that it would be like that one dude who was designated, and he'd been, given, all the information that people wanted him to have or whatever. And this was something that um, I caught on to when I was about 11 years old. Because my parents, a few times, they made it a point to discuss a child trafficking ring who operates on the internet in Amarillo, Texas. My dad began to describe to me that that there was this child trafficking ring, and that they would all tell each other where to meet or find kids. And they were all telling each other when their own kids left the house. Um, they were telling other men where they could go find their kids, telling them which parks to pick them up from. I believe that he described to me an instance like where fathers were dropping their kids off at Wonderland Park there in Amarillo, and that other dads knew to go scout those kids out after they were dropped off. Um, and I remember being about 11 years old, and things had already been weird, and I'll potentially get into that more, even though I've already given a lot of testimony to that. My dad said to me, "Let me know when you leave the house." And he wasn't like that. He wasn't an attentive dad or whatever. So I automatically knew that something was up. And he also wasn't entirely trying to hide that something was up. He knew that it was unusual for him to be making that request, but he did it anyways. And with the amount of time that it took for me to see what the results of that were, he made it extra obvious. So I feel like that in some ways that my dad in particular would just say things out in the open, do things out in the open, or make things really obvious for me. And at times I thought back and I wondered, and you'll have to forgive me for going into all of this, but it really is important, maybe for me to get personal about this, because, you guys kind of injected me with things and implanted me with things, and you kind of did a lot, and it's all been really personal. So I might just get really personal. There were times that I would look back and I would think about how obvious that my dad would make things, and about how he would almost like set things up for me even as a kid to like as puzzle pieces that I could put together very easily, almost like that I would, like I was a little investigator or a detective, and that I could solve my own crime. You know what I mean? Or I could solve these crimes, this whatever that was being done to me, and somehow free myself or whatever. But I also, when it comes to Luciferianism, part of the ritualistic abuse is that you're doing something out in the open. You're doing it right in front of everyone, and you're admitting to it. You're leaving the puzzle pieces out for everyone to solve. And when they do solve it, they're like, "Aha! Oh, oh my God, it's this, everyone. And you think that you might be able to say something about it, or that, or that you might, um, even see justice someday, but it's all like just one big setup to make you, want to put a puzzle together, and then aha, and it's like makes you think that you might be able to do something about it, but the trick is that you really can't. So in my video that I made about being exploited as a kid, I go into, you know, mentioning people making money from me and letting me know that they were making money from me, and, feeding me false promises about, letting me spend that money on sparkly clothes. And so I will say that I was very upset at about 7 years old, after, a few good years had passed, to still be waking up to cameras and, in unusual positions, and, you know, uh, and to know that people were still making money off of me, and then for it to be brought up again, around the eight, and then, I kind of had, they kind of sicked a youth pastor on me when I was about 9 years old. And then, so by the time and that was like this whole church corruption thing. Even the preacher was offering me money to be quiet about it. And that was Mescalero Baptist Church in Amarillo, if anybody wants to know. I know that they've changed hands since then, but I almost don't care. As far as I'm concerned, there's a stain on that building. I'm not sure that even God even wants to take off of it. It's really that bad. So, and then I know that I end up over at this little girl's house in an apartment complex, where like her dad's like feeling me up and weird stuff like that. And there's just so much that has to do with this network, and then the same, some other horrible, sick things are happening to my cousin and my little sister at the time. They've got some big creepy dude sitting with them, showing them pictures of stuff on his phone and videos, and there's no telling what happened to them. And so, and I wouldn't know about that until I was an adult, you know what I mean? But that all came into play whenever I had to sit down, really think within the last couple years of being put through the Hunger Games, while I'm out on the streets and everything, having to really like put everything back together the right way, especially after I recovered from amnesia for the first year of the last few years or whatever. Part of me putting everything together the right way meant that I really, really had to sit down and really think about this stuff. And I couldn't avoid the thought of certain subjects or ideas just because it made me uncomfortable. There was no way to avoid any of it anymore. I had to sit down and put it all together because my life absolutely depended on it. Not just my life depended on it anymore. The lives of plenty of other people began to depend on my knowledge, testimony, my witness, and my willingness to provide that information. And I realized that there have been a lot of people who don't want me around anymore for plenty of different reasons. Unfortunately for you all, you've shown me that you squander your money, you don't spend it wisely, and that you're not very protective of children. And if you've shown me throughout my lifetime that you're not very protective of children, and that you don't take sex crimes very seriously as you ought, and that you're not actually willing to provide justice to all of the victims that I've seen created throughout my lifetime, you haven't even, I haven't seen justice provided for even one of those victims. So I'm going to be a lot less likely to just roll over and allow anyone else to just take things over for me and push me out of the way. I'm at this point, after all this time, And especially after knowing that other people know what's going on. Um, and I'm very grateful that they're making videos about it, and that they're, at least in a roundabout way, reaching out to me, and reaching out to the other victims of this. And so I would like to be a part of that. I would like to be a part of um, presenting my information to other victims, or to anybody at all who would be interested. Um, I would say that the information is for investigative purposes as well. I could also say that, but and if you're entertained by it, then more power to you. That's incredible. I think yesterday I was like, oh, this is only for informative purposes. No, I mean, if you're entertained by it, by all means, go right ahead. Um, I've also heard of sleeping gas being deployed into a person's home. I've heard of a gas being shot under a door, uh, um, or the cracks of a door or something like that, that makes the entire household fall asleep. I've heard that it'll make the cats and dogs even fall asleep. So if you think that having a surveillance system, um, if you're a victim of anything like this, if you think that having a surveillance system helps, or that having dogs around to alert you or to attack intruders, um, that isn't always the case. Um, there's plenty of ways around your locks. There are plenty of ways around your surveillance systems. There are plenty of ways around your pets. I would go so far as to say that there is nothing about your security protocol in your own personal life, or potentially even in your workplace, that has the power to stand up against the evil that I myself have been put through. There hasn't been a lock on a door that I've been behind ever that, some creep couldn't find their way through. And it's upsetting to me that we have developed security and technology and, this communication base, and that we know what's right and wrong, and we know what detriment that we can cause others, and that in my situation, instead of using all of that intel and comms and tech, all of that, instead of using that for good and to protect civilians, to protect me, and to protect my children, those things were used for evil, and they were used against my family, and to shatter my life, to shatter my family, and to create a great deal of psychological distress. That is one thing that I can say about the entire ordeal, is that I have had to do my very best to keep the most sound mind that I possibly can, which I wasn't fully able to, you know what I mean? 100% of the time. I'm not going to say that I was 100% the entire way through, because I most certainly wasn't. And I've I've really had to get to know myself really well. I've had to be really good at how I deal with grief, pain, my anger, fear, and a lot of that practice is going to come into play um, because of uh, an attack method or a targeting method that's called energy harvesting. And energy harvesting can be a few different things, okay? So, energy harvesting can be a narcissistic power play, okay? It's a topic in the subject of narcissism, okay? Energy harvesting is also a witchcraft topic. It ties into some Skex magic, and unfortunately some pedophilia magic. But energy harvesting is also a technological thing. It can also be part of the cyborgia. There is an injection of, they call it an AI biological injection. And okay, so there seems to be one or more of these weird injections, right? And I believe that I may have been microchipped or given some kind of injections whenever I was a teenager. Actually, right after I was saved, which is like a Christian terminology. As far as religion goes, as soon as I got really wrapped up in a religious practice, I think that I was like immediately thrown into a juvenile detention center and microchipped or potentially given this shot or whatever. And it is supposed to, it's described as like a substance, I don't know, like a spider web that it goes through your entire body and it connects to your chakras, and it tries to hold your chakras and keep your energy from expanding. It's supposed to prevent you from reaching a meditative state. It's supposed to prevent you from going into a trance or from switching over from physical body to spirit body. It's supposed to get in the way of all kinds of things. It's supposed to prevent you from, a lot of things while simultaneously drawing energy from your body. And it literally harvests the energy from the human body. And there's different ways that they can bring your energy levels up higher, or there's different things that you can do to bring your energy, a boost of energy up, and then that energy be absorbed or sent into whatever. I'm not entirely sure how it works yet. We're going to be learning about this together at the same time, apparently. But I'm going to tell you, at least as much as I know until now, because it's my information and in addition to their information that, like, I wouldn't have been able to do it without me. You know what I mean? You guys might have, but I wasn't. So just gonna let you know what I know as well as I can. All right. So in this energy harvesting part of it is another time and way that things really take a turn and turn into like an entire other subject and level of advanced understanding or whatever. We're just going to try our best, okay? I don't think that there's anything too advanced for any of you. I think that you're all highly intelligent. You're each a universe all into yourselves, and you're an entire macrocosm of intel and information, just a giant wealth of knowledge, and you have an incredible ability to learn as much as possible. That's part of the reason why it's so easy for me to just spill forth all this information, knowing that there's only 3 people that would be able to watch this through, like, without pausing. Like, I bore me. I would have to pause this. I would be doing all kinds of stuff in between, or I would have to, like, you know, just put it in my ear while I was doing all kinds of other stuff. But I got ADHD just a little bit, if you haven't noticed. But energy harvesting, it is some really sick stuff, okay? It's really sick from a narcissistic, in the narcissistic topics, it's sick in the witchcraft topics, and it's sick in the tech topics. So any energy harvesting whatsoever is generally a bad thing. However, I believe that each person in their own way, whether intentionally or unintentionally, is responsible or guilty in some ways of energy harvesting. But I think that it's not necessarily a harvesting that we're doing on the Reggie. I think that it's more of an absorption, that we are absorbing each other's energy. But when we actively go to someone or go to a channel so that we can pull someone's energy, or go to someone, when you're actively trying to pull someone's energy or get a certain kind of energy from them, I guess that would be harvesting. And I am assuming that that is not a good thing. I don't personally think that it's okay just to be a taker. I think that if you're going